What's up, everyone? Recently, I had the opportunity to talk with my friend David. You might know him as David Wayne Creates on both TikTok and Instagram, where he shows off his Lego creations. Not only does he work with Lego, but he's also a painter, and we got to talk about all of his different creative avenues, as well as just the creative process in general. So I hope you guys enjoy. If you want to know more about his work, I'll leave a link down in the description, and thank you guys for watching. So tell me a little bit, I guess, like how you got started on TikTok. Was it mainly just Lego content, or how did you really enter the space?
So the first TikToks I ever made were during the pandemic. I was quarantined at my parents' house in the DFW area, and I was painting because I was really interested in how like you could use the sound, and it was that kind of function as a hashtag. So I was painting like life-size record album covers on my wall, and I was getting a few thousand hits every video. And then when I moved back to Abilene, I was working for a bit that summer at Boys and Girls Club, and I would play with Lego with the kids because it was something that they connected with, and it was, I would we would make up little stories, and we were watching a lot of Phineas and Ferb, and so I built Perry the Platypus, and they were like, Mr. David, because these little kids, man, they were all about summer 2020. They're all about TikTok, um, and so they were like, Mr. David, put that on TikTok. It'll go viral. I'm like, nobody cares about. I built this Lego Perry the Platypus, and I was like, nobody cares about like Lego Perry the Platypus, and it went pretty viral. And so then all of a sudden, I had like 20,000 followers, and like at the summer of 2020, that was a decent amount, like because people were just getting started with the
Yep.
platform, and so like then all of a sudden I didn't know what to do with it. I kind of like, do I like do more art stuff? Do I do Lego stuff? And then slowly but surely I started to create more things. I was like, okay, I like this, and I would buy some kits, and I'd just like build little things with them. And I think I built Bernie Sanders with the mittens when that meme was happening, and that went pretty viral.
Yeah.
And then it was just more and more, and I was it just kind of, I think in life you got to go with what flows. You have to like if you have to. Sometimes you have an idea of like, this is my serious art, this is what I'm creating, this is what I'm pushing, and then something happens and it's like, well, we're having fun with this, so like let's pull this thread.
Definitely. I feel like summer 2020 was a great time both for TikTok and Lego, because for me, like, I really fell into a Lego hole myself during that time period, and I started getting really into that kind of content and stuff. So I think there's a little bit of a perfect storm. And yeah, it definitely, TikTok's a little bit different than every other platform in that you're just throwing things at the wall to see what works, and every other platform is a little bit more curated. So it definitely feels like it was a space to have fun in comparison to the other platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an unserious, like Lego is a fairly unserious medium, and TikTok is a fairly unserious platform. And it's kind of interesting because like I went to school for art. I have wanted to be an artist my entire life. I make my entire living off of art. And to be like, I'm a serious artist and do these very unserious things, it's like, oh, cool. I had a close friend of me say recently, he said, you need to have more fun, man. You're at your peak when you're having fun. It's like, wow, like, yeah, I'm doing all of these things that are by definition fun. Like, I'm painting these murals and building with Lego and like teaching classes for kids, and like all of these things are so fun, but I wasn't having fun. So I kind of had to go back.
Yeah,
Okay, like I do this because it's fun.
I have to
Some
remind
level.
myself of that a lot. Like, I don't know, sometimes I get so involved with like how things perform and how things are doing, and sometimes I stop and ask myself like, what if this were fun? Because it should be fun,
Yeah,
and that kind of changes my whole approach pretty much every time.
yeah. So when did you get started with your photography?
Photography was pretty young, around 16 years old, I would say. But I was always kind of doing photography here and there. It really kind of became serious when I was in high school. I was on the yearbook uh, staff and kind of took it pretty seriously there. And then I went to school for filmmaking, and so filmmaking is more what I know, but photography is kind of like what I use to like work on my skills, and it just kind of kept growing and growing. And I probably have more of a passion in photography, I'd say,
Okay.
but filmmaking just as much so. But there's something so fun, I think, about like organic photography, which is what I tend to prefer. But yeah.
And when you say organic, does that mean you just go out into the field and you just shoot what happens?
Yeah.
Interesting. Because, the interesting thing about you and I do such different things, but where I think that there's this weird overlap is the fact that we both photograph rodeos. And I think that just says something about being an artist in Texas. Where in Texas are you?
So I'm in Paris.
In
So
Paris,
we're like
Texas. Okay.
15 minutes from Oklahoma,
Okay.
about like a hour and a half from like Frisco, but
Okay.
like really close to the whole Dallas area.
Okay.
But I wouldn't really say that like I never really felt like a Texan until like moving back to Paris and kind of like through my job, I had to photograph a lot of more like agricultural events and things of that nature. Um, and I kind of connected with that like side of Texas a little bit more and appreciated it. And especially like, so I shot my first rodeo in the fall of 2022.
Okay.
And it's just so interesting to see like, I don't know, like the ritualistic nature of it, the community, the excitement, and it's like 110 degrees outside and everyone's just having fun. And yeah, I enjoyed it a lot, and I've photographed a lot of more events like that since.
Yeah, that is super cool. I mean, and that's what made me really like your work because it, I came across, I don't know who followed who first. I feel like I followed you first on TikTok.
I might have
Maybe.
followed you first
Did you?
because you're I wasn't blowing up as much. So my rodeo video was like late into like it was around the time I almost stopped
Okay.
posting in like my initial run of TikToks. But
Okay.
I mean, I think your videos came up a lot more on my feed.
Well, I was seeing your stuff
Who's to
and I was
say?
impressed with it because it was about the same time that I was like dipping my toe into the pool of Americana
Mm.
and really understanding was that an American upbringing and is kind of that Norman Rockwell, you know, that's what had shaped so much of what I was creating because that's the environment. And it's just
Well, I want to say that's where we kind of had that overlap, which is like, how big is Abilene?
Abilene is like it's bigger than Paris. I think it's like 160,000,
Yeah,
something
so
like
I,
that.
I want to say our number is typically 25, but I want to say it's gone up to like 50. But the thing that people say is 25. But we're like on the verge of getting bigger, but it's definitely like living here. And so I went to school in Austin and I went to LA for a bit. And this is all during COVID time. And I was trying to get a job like at agencies and stuff, and it didn't pan out. And I came back here to look for jobs and ended up getting a job back in town. And the stark difference between like these gigantic cities and a town speaks to me a lot. And like a lot of Paris, like Paris is nice, but there's so much history, and there's history where like it's just like you see a dilapidated building across the street, and there's like all this iconography of when it was made and the time period that it was in. That I think just being surrounded by it and like my uh, just how things occurred at the time, I was just really interested in photographing a lot of that history in the town.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I can definitely see that. And there was almost a feeling of isolation to your work, especially when you deal with that real stark black and white and
Yeah.
something that like I would approach from like a straight on angle, you would really do like angled, like you would do there's a lot of diagonals in your work and you use a lot of the rodeo banners to create or like the American flags, the rodeo banners, the way you use lines. There's
Mhm.
there's a lot of really cool stuff. I'm assuming that wherever you post this, people that know your work will see it, but to anyone that's you need to if you're just watching his podcast, you don't know his photography. You need to see his photography. It's really cool. But,
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I know I got comments on TikTok before about like my use of lines and all that in my compositions, but it's like to hear you like ascribe that meaning to it. Like I maybe it's there when I'm taking it, but I'm never like thinking in that sense. I definitely think there is a level of isolation to my work, just kind of again like the nature of how things in my life have transpired, and just I'm living in my hometown again, and the feelings of being in your hometown. I think a lot of that kind of factors into my work. So it's interesting that that comes across pretty well.
yeah, I mean, it's I think I think all work is kind of just a cocktail of the ingredients that you put into it, right? So if
Yeah,
I listen to a lot of Jim Croce and I watch a lot of children's like Muppets and, like Pixar type content, then all of a sudden I'm gonna have these very American but very like child friendly stories that like it's a cocktail of the stuff that you put into it. So I think if you're
100%.
feeling that small town, Americana experience, that will be reflected in your work. And you
Yeah,
got to just lean into it, and like it's interesting because I think a lot of painters out where I am, looking at them in 10, 20 years, because a lot of them are kind of retired and, they probably won't be painting 10, 20 years from now. I hope they will be, but some of them won't. And I think when we're looking back at this era of art, it's going to be just regionalist art, right? And, a lot of clouds and cowboys sell paintings. Um, but the truth is, I realized you can not only just lean into that iconography, but you can use things that people already have a perception of. People are already, first of all, marketable, but more importantly, they already have a perception of the cowboy and who he is. And I can use that as a study on gender identity, and people don't even realize that. I can use things that we're talking about in our day-to-day lives and the way that I position that imagery to tell a completely different story. And I think that's fun. And then, learning to take myself less seriously, to kind of loop back to what you wanted to talk about, which was the TikTok and the Lego. And, I've done like a sculpture of a Lego cowboy on a horse, and I took it to one of our jury gallery shows here in town. And it's kind of intimidating. I'm like already the youngest of all these regionalist painters and sculptors, and I come in here with a box of Lego, and that was all anybody talked about that show. Was like, oh, yeah, and it wasn't even like by what I can do now with the medium, it wasn't even that good, but like people just thought that that was cool. Like, oh, that's fun. Like, oh, is that Lego? Like, okay, that's cool. Like, and sorry, I'm saying like a lot.
You're good.
Yeah,
I mean, I think what's so cool about that is like I think the whole branding of Lego is, just to play and experiment, and it's something I've always wanted to do. Like I think like, it'd be fun to just take a photo, like make a photorealistic anything. I mean, I know you're not making photorealistic Lego, but it's just really interesting to just let your imagination run wild and do it in a way that's not structured by a booklet or anything. And I think it's just very it's pure creativity. And then when I learned about like your mural work and your art on top of that, I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like I feel like you just kind of use any avenue to kind of express creative ideas, which I think that's what makes it so special to me at least.
well, I appreciate that. I had been reached out to by Fox. This is going back. I'm not just dropping this. This is going back to what you just said.
You're good.
Um, I had been reached out to by Fox maybe a season ago for Lego Masters, and I was kind of in this scramble to find a partner. And there were a lot of great options in the Lego world, but then I had a friend of mine who's a local artist, and I called him up and was like, "Hey, would you be interested in this?" And he's like, "Well, I don't really do Lego." I was like, "But it's just shapes and colors and form and yeah, okay, I'll come over to your studio. We can work a little bit, And it was like that was to me. We didn't end up getting picked for the show. They picked two other guys from Texas, so I think they meet their like specific quota on like who from where and what kind of person you put on because it's a reality TV.
Yeah.
Um, but he came over to the studio, and it was kind of like when I was trying to figure out who I wanted to work with for that potential project. It was like when Gene Wilder is like, "You've won, my boy," like that was the right answer. Like it's just shapes and colors and form and function. And so yeah, I think that and Sergio's a genius, man. He has done some of the best abstract work that I've ever seen, and he teaches figure drawing here in town, which is a free class we have for any Abilene folks that don't know this on Monday nights at the center. So yeah, um, man, I'm surrounded by you wouldn't expect both in both in my digital fields and in my Abilene field. I'm just surrounded by so many talented people, and it's just like half the time I just feel like a fan. Um, you know, Like I've just for Lego projects I've been doing, I've been rewatching all the Kung Fu Panda movies.
Yeah.
And like when Poe like first shows up to the Jade Palace, and he just like knows, like he's just this geek, and he just knows all of these like past martial artists in this universe, and he's just like, oh, like this is so cool, this is the coolest thing ever. And then sometimes I'll be sitting and I'll be watching like another painter do something. I'll be like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Or through the digital form, like I'll see something that another digital creator has done. Like I saw this guy that I just followed today on TikTok. He was making he sets like specific rules for himself because he makes sculptures out of wood, like cut wood, and like he makes these
Hmm.
big flat images. But his rule that he set for himself is he can't stain or paint them, right? But his whole thing is about being eco-friendly. He can't do anything new to this wood. He can just cut and glue, and so he got so excited because he found this dresser drawer that someone threw out that was painted completely yellow. So he's like, now I have this color to use, but I can only use these sheets. And like, it just blew my mind. It just blew my mind. Like, cause like, and I think that's kind of what I dig about like the Lego as a format. Cause it's like, okay, you're building a sculpture within this set of rules. And like, yes, I could, like if I need a specific color that doesn't exist in Lego, I could go to my paints and paint it, but that's not within the rules. I don't paint the Lego. I just do them this
Yeah.
way. And the structure has to be within these plastic bricks that have to lock together. But I can use it's like doing found art, like assemblage sculpture within a specific toy system. But it's a toy system that's existed for 100 years. So there's been decades of
Yeah.
different shapes and colors and parts. And the more you can geek out about like, oh, there was this Bionicle mask from 2002, and the curves kind of look like this, and so that would match what I need for this color and shape of this sculpture I'm building, and it will fasten like this. It's a. I mean, they call it, especially in the '90s, they were really branded as the Lego system. So that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, and I feel like your videos come across really organically, like what you're saying. You're like, well, this piece kind of looks like what I need, so let's just put it on for now, and then it just continues to grow and grow, and it just feels so like logical and simple. And I love that because I feel like if I were given a box of Legos, I would overanalyze it, and trying to do that, I wouldn't even know where to start. And it feels very simple, very easy.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of trying to be the same way that I approach my paintings, like the same way that I would place a brick onto a sculpture and be like, this kind of can make the eyebrow. Like, okay, like let's do that as a brushstroke, right? Like let's try this color, and if that doesn't work, well, guess what? It's acrylic. We can just layer over it, and we'll keep going and we'll keep going until we've created the image and we've gotten what we want for our audience.
So going into that, like talking about like what you've learned from the Lego side of things, bringing it into your art, is there anything else inside of that?
Oh man, there's everything else. There's so many lessons to learn from every medium. When I was in high school, a kid in my class said, like you have to pick one medium and like you have to master it. And I just think that like I hate to say it, like that's bull. That's because if you're observant on one medium, it's like cross training, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're training to be a runner, you need to train your body in other things because otherwise you're going to like hurt your legs because you're gonna be you're putting too much pressure on one thing. Um, it's just like cross training. It's like, okay, what I'm learning from working with these colored pencils, oh gosh, I wish I could do that here. Or it's like, by setting limitations within different mediums, you can promote creativity and then you're ready to do it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Um,
I've been doing that a lot with learning about audio in regards to video,
okay.
and it's taught me a whole lot just delving strictly into audio only and how that can improve my video work.
Hmm. Interesting. And I bet there's a lot of similarities because you're still dealing with timing. You're still dealing with, I guess, like a specific, yeah, like you're still dealing with time. You're still dealing with like that spacing. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can see that.
So you do a lot of mural work as well, and I saw that you like paint live.
I
Can you
do
tell me a
paint
little bit
live.
more
Yeah.
about uh, that process? You're painting a mural right now at it's called the Ice House, correct?
Okay, so that has been an ongoing project. And that
Yeah.
is a really bad spot to paint live because so when they say I'm painting live, it means, hey, you can come up and say hi to him.
Gotcha.
He's up here while these events are going on. Because it's in the bathroom that connects this Lone Star dry goods store with this kind of like upscale country western type bar that has a really nice like musician kind of area. And we did one where we did a lot of Texas artists. So
Mhm.
I got to meet some incredible artists that are in the country western scene. John Bauman, if you've heard of him, he has a
I'm
song. It's
not.
like I'm not crying. It's West Texas in my eye. He with the Panhandlers. Um, oh man, there were like 20 of them. Summer Dean is incredible. She's kind of just started on the scene. She's really big in Fort Worth right now. But and then we're gonna do another wall for local artists because the whole time we were doing it, I would tell the owner, I was like, "Hey, we got to do this guy, we got to do this guy." And he's like, "Yeah, we'll get to him, we'll get to him." And then we realized there were like no local artists represented, so he's like, "I guess I'll give you another wall." So we're thinking maybe like this summer. They're kind of doing some renovations right now. They're getting ready for a big kitchen project because they didn't have a kitchen in the bar right now. So they're kind of all their contracting work is going to that. But that's what's really cool about repeat clients like that. We can work together to like be like, okay, like in doing freelance, that helps me when a
Yeah.
client and me can sit down and be like, okay, um, as a contractor, where can you fit me in on the months where you're not building new stuff or planning on having to repair stuff? Like, then you use that contracting budget for me. And then that actually turns into promotion for you and helps the space look better. Um, but so that's not a great example of live painting, I guess, because I'm like stuck back there. Like you come through the little hallway, it's kind of something you see in between things. Um, but I think I do like live wedding painting or sometimes like live painting to promote like an art walk downtown. Like my favorite art walk that we do is car walk, and I show up to car walk, and I'm like, and it's just wall to wall classic cars, and so that'll be the second week, second Thursday in April, coming up in less than a month now. So
Yeah.
yeah, so like that, I'll be sitting out there and I'll probably pick a car, maybe have a picture of it, or I might just go out there with a blank canvas and be like, I'm gonna see if in an hour or 2 hours if I can do whatever classic car I like. And I've done both, so I'll kind of figure out how prepared I want to be a little closer to time.
So, in regards to like TikTok today and everything, how do you feel with the way that obviously the platform's changing, but are you just going to keep moving on, or do you have any plans,
Yeah,
like
you know, I
aside
went through
from
some life
TikTok?
changes about a year ago, and I kind of stopped making TikTok, and I've gotten back into it more recently, and the whole platform has changed, and it feels like I lose 500 followers every time I post, which is weird.
Yeah.
But you know, I can kind of, I think that that'll kind of plateau down, and then people or plateau out, and then people will get interested again. Because I'm already seeing, you know, more comments, more engagements than when I first got back into doing it. All that to say, you know, with this stuff with the government, everybody's freaking out. With this stuff, you know, like with the fact that there's like no good sounds to use anymore on TikTok. Like it's just the not nothing. I love Beyonce, but like the new like I don't want to hear the same 30 seconds of the same song, you know,
Yep.
30 times every time I get on my phone. Or the I mean, you've been on TikTok, and what's funny is by the time that you put this out, I'm sure it'll be something different. But there's like the Bob Marley grandson song, then there's the like, oh, I don't know, the like, I don't know, like it's just like it's just
Yeah.
so repetitive, and they're like, it's come to a part where like, it's almost like the mom and pop shops of TikTok are starting to get phased out. All of that to say, I'm thinking it'll come back around. But if it doesn't, TikTok was always temporary for me.
Yeah.
And you know, kind of how I use the two platforms in conjunction is like Meta or like Facebook and Instagram, kind of being a similar audience for me. Um, that is my depth of growth, whereas TikTok is my width of growth. I can have these really fun big Lego projects on TikTok. And yeah, sure, I show some of my paintings, and I'm like, hey, this is who I am. I'm an artist. And people are like, oh wow, you know, Lego Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and that gets 8 million hits. And then but those are the people that are unfollowing me now because they're not as interested.
Yeah.
But then on Instagram, that doesn't really happen. those are more the people that are like liking and sharing every post and are like, hey, we've watched this guy since he was in college. We know this guy personally. This guy is part of our artist community. Like, he supports us, we support him. And then you go even further on Facebook for like, besides, you know, like, because that's Instagram, and then Facebook, you go, and that's where it's like local business owners are like, you know what? I will drop 5, 10 grand on a mural. Like, I actually love what he's doing. I think that that can improve our space, and I see the value in that. So,
Yeah.
you know, like, it's, you got to know what to use each platform for. They're tools, right? And like,
Yeah, 100%.
and so like, let's say you have a drill. You know, you have a hammer, you have a drill, you have a level, and your drill is starting to run out of batteries, right? Are you going to stop building the house? No, right? Like, it's not the drill we care about. It's getting the project done, getting the house done, you know, having, and in this case, that's making things and telling human stories, and then sharing those with the next humans that will continue to share human stories and continue to make things. And then, so when you look at that, like, TikTok is kind of inconsequential. Like, have I made some money off of it? Yeah, I have. Have I made a lot of cool friends off of it? Yes, I have. But if I get on my phone tomorrow and Joe Biden took TikTok off of every single iPhone in America, which is a total violation of, we won't even get into all that. But if that happens, you know what? It's okay. You keep
Yeah.
moving forward, right? Like, it's like, okay. And then, you know, maybe because short form content won't go away. You know, the
It's
same
found a
way
good
that
place.
photographs didn't go away after the invention of the camera, and then that came the next thing. And, you know, movies didn't go away because people were watching TV. You know, like, TV hasn't gone away because YouTube came out. YouTube didn't go away because short form content came out. So, like, it's just a new way to tell a story, which can only be positive. You know, and like
Yeah.
every time I think I'm out of ways to tell stories, I see something new and I'm like, wow, that's cool. I got to check out that, what's it called in Dallas? Do you have to Meow Wolf? They've got
Yeah.
4 all over the U.S., and it's this totally immersive art experience that, if you really get into it, there's clues that are like a play happened there, and they use all different things. Like so many teams of artists, like a graphic designer makes like pamphlets for the house that you're in for this people's church, and, you know, like, someone came in and like they drafted up handwriting for different people, so you have handwritten letters and you're discovering who these people are. And then for the more trippy parts of it, you're like kind of finding out where these people went. And
Yeah.
so it's like Stranger Things if you're like a side character following the characters like 10 minutes after they were there.
Yeah.
But, you know, I say that to say that there was so many ways to tell a story, right? Like, when you, and it goes all the way back to like cave painting. It's like, I can tell a story of this hunt that we had, you know, and I can depict it simply, and people will be like, "Oh, now I see how big that bison was, because you drew it, and I see your stick figures like this big." So, okay, you know, that's awesome. And then, you know, people, as people start to develop, like, they want to worship God and they want to tell people how much they love God, and so they start to, they develop worship music. And, you know, and you, like, there's recordings in the Bible where, you know, people are playing harps, and people, you know, there's whole books of the Bible that are just songs. And you can go through some of those and you're like, yeah, I feel that way, or I have felt this lament. And I said, so you just go on, and there are so many ways to tell a story, right? Like I said, like I mentioned Jim Croce earlier, my favorite singer. Like, all of his work is just stories from his life. Um, or you might have a YouTuber who is being funny and telling stories about his day to day. That, you know, I feel like that's what we grew up in, like, you know, 2005 to 2009 era. We've got these guys that are just telling goofy stories. And, you know, somewhere in between is Michelangelo, right? And,
Yeah.
like, and he's painting this system. I don't know. I'm being kind of all over the place with my thought patterns. There's just so much in human life that is in service of storytelling.
Yeah. Definitely pretty broad, um, in what you covered there. But
Yeah,
I mean, I
if TikTok
agree.
goes away, it
There's
doesn't matter. The next thing
yeah.
is going to happen.
Um, And partially for me, I mean, I kind of got really discouraged when TikTok started to change because I didn't grow as much as I wanted to, like in the time period I was posting. I got really decentivized because I wasn't really like reposting videos to try and boost engagement. I posted it once. I posted it with a song I really liked and cared about, and I moved on, regardless of like how it was going to perform. And so, I mean, for a long time, I actually stopped sharing on TikTok, on Instagram, and I've recently, I mean, pretty much this week, actually gotten back into doing it. And kind of like what you were saying, like I had been gone so long that, yeah, I mean, there really isn't a lot of music. There's not a lot of like this. It's not the same vibe at all. And I also post for the social media account that we run at the business that I'm at, and it's just an entirely different vibe as a whole. But
Yeah.
I think, yeah, trying to remember that it still goes on. I kind of realized like I was like I'm throwing in the towel because it's not working. But then I was like, well, I'm still making the art, and I still want to share my art and um, show it to people. So who cares if it's 5 people that are seeing it, or a whole bunch of people on TikTok, like you were saying, that like have that kind of surface level connection with what you're doing. I think it's valuable to just, they say make art for yourself. And sometimes I think in the way that social media and everything is set up now, I kind of lose sight of that fact.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's, your work.
Yeah, I mean, and that's such a good perspective because like I gotta think like I understand why you and I understand why you're saying that you stopped posting because it's like yes, true, you make art for yourself, but like I was making Lego videos or not, I was making Lego builds when I wasn't making videos.
Yeah.
I've still got tons of stuff that like hasn't been shown or like is like half done, and I think that the reason is kind of like when you're at a dinner party and you're telling a story, and then all of a sudden you realize you have kind of one person's attention, but the rest of the table is like kind of doing something else. You kind of like figure out a way to phase out of that story. You're like, ooh, maybe this wasn't a winner.
Yeah.
Let me tactical retreat. Listen for a little bit, and okay, now it's my turn again.
Yeah.
You got to flow with that conversation and
And
recognize what people do want to hear.
yeah, and I found too, like, I mean, I was very much like posting like 1 to 3 times a day sometimes. On the weekend, I would like churn them out and like really go to town on making videos. But then it's like you're like oversaturating yourself. And I found that it was better to post less. But then it's like if you post less, kind of like what you were saying, like you get that dud and then you have to wait a little bit to post the next one. And then if it's a dud too, like the two different strategies of like just spray and pray versus just hoping that one a day or whatever will go viral.
Yeah, and I'm doing like 3 a week right now, and that's my big comeback.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right now I'm just clipping YouTube videos and trying to give that content a second life. So
yeah.
that's my plan.
I'm not a content creator, man. I'm an artist. But if that's where the art is going, like, okay, like let's be open to that.
I mean, I
Cool.
feel like, your mind definitely changes the second you start to consider all of that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I stopped going out on shoots for myself or shooting film because I'm like, well, if I'm going to go out, I have to film it. So, I mean, I do have some rules that are like my own, but for the most part, it's like I shoot film now for those events. I mean, like, how much, like, obviously, like Kung Fu Panda, like, was that something? I guess you had talked about you'd already worked on Oogway before, but like, obviously, that is coinciding with the release of the movie to try and, you know, time things marketing wise and
I
everything.
had the Kung Fu Panda. I built that a year ago when I
Okay.
wasn't doing TikTok, and I just redid them real quick, put them out, and it's been getting
Gotcha.
some hits. And then, but the problem is I'm working on this whole base for it.
Hmm.
I've got plans because I've never showcased Lego outside of like the fine. I've done a little bit of showcasing in the fine art world at my personal studio, and teaching classes for it, and at our local art gallery. I've never showcased in a Lego convention, so I'm planning on doing Brick Rodeo in Austin this summer.
Cool.
And I really want a massive like 2 foot by 2 foot. Like I want to do the peach tree and stairs going up it, Po and Uguay, and then I'd love to do because I've got builds because over the past 4 years I did Mantis, I did Viper,
Oh,
um, gosh, I feel like I did another one. I had started on Monkey, Crane, and Shifu at times. But I'd love to have them all going up this like rotating display, maybe have like LEDs on it. Just do something really fun, because that is a huge part of my childhood. And so
It's actually really cool then to hear that it wasn't just for the movie, that like you were working on this for a
yeah,
long time, and that's
I,
awesome to hear.
I kind of forgot that Kung Fu Panda 4 was coming out, to be honest. Like, because sometimes you just get so in your own little world, you don't really pay attention to it, and then yeah, that's how that happened. Um, and then I'm like, oh, like this new Jack Black sound where he's singing the "Hit Me, Baby, One More Time." Okay, maybe I need to use that. And that one was the one that got the most, even though I don't think that was my best video I made in the series so far. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to tell the story because I'm working on this. It's the biggest thing I've ever built. This whole setup,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah, I saw the video of you doing like the drawings and like the height and everything and
it's
trying to figure that out.
skeleton of it is in my house right now. So and like the basis of the cherry tree, and well, since you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen some like behind the scenes stuff too on my story. But yeah, it's it's massive. It's a massive undertaking. I was hitting up one of my buddies. He goes by Lego Joey on TikTok and Instagram. I was having to ask him. I was like, man, he's a professional model builder up in New York, which is something I'm interested in doing at some point.
Like a model builder, like for Lego,
Yeah, he works for
or
Legoland. Um, but I
okay.
was kind of, but he,
Oh, I think I know who you're talking about then.
dude, Joey Klusnick, as I think how you say his name, super cool dude. Um, Man, he does, not only does he do Lego all day and work at these model workshops, he's one of the best like model builders in, I think, the internet space. He just put out this one. It's called the Weeping Wern, and it was a weeping willow that would like open up, and like it had these it was a dragon, and it like had the wings were the willow tree, and it would it was like this fantasy character. I mean, it didn't even look like Lego, and the parts usage just insane, right? Um, Something, and he did something really special with the medium. So, anyways, I've been kind of hitting him up like, hey, how do I package this very large and very fragile tree? Because every time I move part of this, like I shake it a little bit, and like cherry blossom, or I guess they're not cherry blossoms because it's a peach tree, but like the blossoms fall off, and like little branches fall off, and I'm like, I don't want to get to Austin and have a box of just
Yeah.
pieces. But I'm
Yeah, I definitely followed like David Hall on YouTube and Rich Boy J. Two of them, they made like really big Star Wars
okay.
mods.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I follow them. I follow them on YouTube. And honestly, David has been one of my go-tos since before I was making Lego content for a YouTube video to throw on in the background.
Yeah.
Um, but I'll say he has improved as an artist in the fact that like when he started out, it was around the like 2008, 2009, like the Clone Wars show was big. So he was just buying basically action figures. But like he was like, oh, my big Lego clone army, and then I was like, okay, I have these parts, I'm gonna like set them up to be really cool. And he's gone from that, like a kid playing with toy soldiers, to like, okay, I'm going to use slightly different colors, and I'm going to make these rock formations, and I'm going to use these
Yeah.
different, and like, so like the lighting looks, and then you look at it and you're like, that's a rock formation. And then you look closer and you're
Yeah.
like, that's Lego, and it's like 10 feet long on both sides. And then for an extra added bonus, now we're going to put all the little Star Wars dudes in there all shooting each other. And like, it's like he's gone from this kid that was playing with his toys to like a sculptor. And he's
Yeah.
just kind of been self-taught with it because I don't, and because I'm not on the YouTube space at all, and that's his primary space, I do not like know him at all. Like, but it's interesting that
Mhm.
like people I know probably know him, and that's cool to think about. Actually, I'd never really thought
Yeah.
about that, how connected we all are. But in the chance that he would ever see this, I'm talking about like a lot of people. So if people are gonna be like, I feel like none of these people might like
That'd be fun.
see this, but like someone else is gonna see it and be like, hey, this weird guy was like talking about y'all. Like
Yeah.
do you actually know him? Like, I don't know. I
Yeah,
get
like I said, I got
I get
really into all of them in 2020 because, like, I think I was watching like M&R might have been one of the first ones I was watching just because I was like learning about the new wave of sets that were coming out during COVID, and I just kind of got deeper and deeper and deeper. And again, like you said, it's just cool to see the lengths that people go with the medium of Lego. And again, it's like it can be as simple as like Duplo blocks or as insane as Geonosis.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
just kind of wild.
And then you've got these fantasies, and I think one thing that's cool about Star Wars, man, since we're on the subject of Star Wars, is pretty much any dude in any generation. Like you have nothing in common. But Star Wars, that's Star Wars, and so it's like this shared lore. Like, I think the I don't know, because I've been trying to figure out what America or like our modern culture, our epic is. Because you think about like, Old English culture has Beowulf. I mean, and before that you have like Homer's The Odyssey, right? Like and I'm trying to figure out what our epic is. And
Yeah.
the only reason I say it's not Star Wars is because Star Wars doesn't take place in America. But and like
I
a
think
lot of it was shot in England, or a
a
different
lot
country.
of it is I love Star Wars.
But
I also
it
hate
is
Star
our
Wars.
epic. I
It's
think
a like
functionally,
love-hate relationship.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, but like, okay. I think I like the world of Star Wars, but obviously it owes a lot to Dune
Right?
for a whole bunch of that. And I
Are
think
you into Dune?
yes.
Okay, I haven't gotten to check it
Um,
out yet. Everybody's saying you got to see Dune, so I
yeah, this
might do
is
that.
it's not, I'm not exactly a hot take, and I'm not like being contrarian, but I read the book before Dune 2 came out,
Okay,
and I think I preferred like reading it as opposed to seeing it. It's not a bad film by any means, and it is really, really good. But I
okay.
just think I prefer like the world that I created in my head for Dune. But I do think like I don't know, there's such a familiarity with Star Wars and there's a little bit more of a cold callousness with Dune, but it's also because it's truly political, it's truly sci-fi. It's a lot more insane than I guess Star Wars is more simple to understand in a lot of its political leanings, but
Star
I think
Wars,
so much of Dune inspired all makes of shows and everything. It's kind of wild.
Star Wars is a western. Star Wars is cowboys. Star Wars is, you know,
Also, samurai.
well, yeah. But I mean, that even like Kurosawa's The Seven Samurai, that's going to become the Magnificent Seven,
Yeah.
is eventually going to be tropes that we see in Star Wars. And I think that's really cool. I think, yeah, I think there's a lot to it. But even like you could analyze Star Wars for all of it, or you could just analyze it for dudes like it, and it's a cool way to connect with other humans.
I agree with that. Part of it too, though, is like I'm so fascinated, and partly it's because growing up in that era, but just kind of the world building of the prequels and like the architecture and the design
Hmm.
and all of that world and how it like relates to the original trilogy. I think it's really cool how you can see this clear like lineage between that entire world and then the Empire and
Yeah.
how it all
Yeah, well, and I
comes
think
up.
the prequels shaped our childhood, and I don't think that most people our age realize how much Doug Chang, who was young when he took over as like the head of design at Lucasfilm for Phantom Menace, I don't think we realize how much he shaped our childhood. How many objects in our homes were like things that he drew, like the kind of the callous smoothness of like the Federation tanks, and then like how cool like the gunships look and the Jedi starfighters, and then like the world building. Yes, and
Yeah.
a lot of that is Doug Chiang's artistry, and that came from his mind and sort of his interpretation, like an expansion on that classic trilogy sci-fi look. And
Yeah.
then you've got this whole world. I think it's
Yeah.
cool.
Are there any I know for me my answer is gonna be the Luger Hulk. It's like the donut ship that's like round that the battle droids fight in. But are there any sets that like you've wanted Lego to make from Star Wars or that's cool to you?
They have made most of the ones that I'm like, yeah, I really would want that. Let me think. they've made so many over the years. I'm trying to think of what's missing.
They just recently came out with that Venator. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, they did a huge Venator, and then they finally did a version of the Invisible Hand that was, you know, in the MIDI scale. But like, so I think maybe Padme ship, but I don't know how they could do
That's
it.
the all chrome.
Yeah, but I don't know
Yeah.
how they could do it at a cost-effective way. Um, they had in like 2002, they had the Naboo starfighters, and they were chromed out.
Yeah.
Those that's a cool set. And I'm trying to think. My white whale set, I don't really buy sets for myself. Like I have
Yep.
the sets that I had when I was a kid. I have a few sets that survive, but most of them, if they end up on a shelf, like, and they are not over a decade old, they are not safe. Like I'm gonna be building something and I'm gonna be picking parts off of them. So I don't really buy a lot of classic stuff for myself either. But I think if I could have one set from the Lego Star Wars canon, it would be 2005 Wookiee Catamaran, and it's like this big. It has the fourth light. There were 5 light up lightsaber figures they did, and I've
Yep.
got 3 of them from when I was a kid. So it says
That's cool.
Luminara with the light up figure. It's got like a Wookiee. It's got Yoda, and it's got Chewbacca. It's got like the big Wookiee flying vehicle. This is a really nice, expansive looking build for how few parts that they used. And then the side build is the Swamp Speeder, and it has 2 Phase 2 clone troopers with green striping, and like it's. I think it goes for like 300 in decent condition right now. So, but like I said, like, and for a lot of Lego fans, like that's all they get is like classic sets and stuff they want to display on their shelves. But
Yep.
for me, if I'm spending $300 on Lego, I've got a massive sculpture that I want to make, or it's an investment for TikTok. It's something I can make a video of that I know maybe I'll get some return from, or um, maybe I'll get just enough attention to get to the next mural project. Um, and yeah, like that's I don't buy a lot of like a lot of people, a lot of my friends that do Lego, like it's just like they have their job and then they pour money into like the coolest, biggest sets that they want. So like 300 is kind of not that much for what they're doing. But then for me, it's like it's not really a justifiable cost because it's got to be something I can take apart and use in a video or use in a sculpture.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, um, yeah, I don't really have space to display Lego. Like I have like a few here, but like other than that, like if I have to buy a Lego set or want to buy a Lego set, it's like where's it gonna go? And then I typically won't. And then kind of going back to the whole design aspect, like Star Wars is my big thing, but I think so much of it in this newer age of Star Wars is just kind of black and gray blobs, and I'm not the biggest fan of that. So I don't really buy too many sets anymore just because I don't have all that much space. But also, I feel like going back to the whole design thing we were talking about, I feel like a lot of the newer age sets are just black and gray blobs. They don't really have a whole lot of character compared to like most things that we were just talking about. They have very clear, I mean, I would call them iconic, but just they're just very distinct designs, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why like I'm not even like yeah, like I don't want a lot of gray like blocky starships. Like I have a few X-wings, I have a few TIE fighters, and they're kind of in between things on a display shelf. Like I have like a Star Wars book, or like I've got one of my X-wings is propped up by like the VHS original trilogy. Like that's just how I like
That's cool.
things to be arranged on my shelf. It's like these are just objects that I think are cool that kind of shaped my childhood. So there's definitely a Star Wars shelf. I got a Toy Story shelf I've been working on. I've got um, that was getting pretty decent. I've got you know, a Buzz and Woody. I've got Slinky. I've got another Buzz Lightyear in box from Toy Story 2. I got some toy soldiers. Oh man, I got to think. I got more little stuff too. But yeah, I'm kind of like I don't know. Like I'm definitely a stuff person. Like I like to have physical
Yeah.
representations of things that have meant a lot to me. Um, and so a lot of times movies or toys is like a world that I have existed in very heavily.
Yeah, I wish I could pare down, but I definitely feel the same and just a lot of stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, You see C3PO and R2D2 up there.
Yeah, and that's kind of just what I've always chosen to spend my extra money on. I've got a huge record collection.
Mm.
Um, I'm very, very much into vinyl records. Got, I mean, a lot of books, a lot of picture books, a lot of things, that I liked in my childhood. A lot of artists that I really like. Um, oh man, like just so many like art textbooks, and like if I really like an artist and there's a textbook about their life, I'm gonna get it. Um, so yeah, I'm a coffee table book kind of guy too. So just which all of that adds up to a lot of weight, which is why I think I'm probably not gonna move for a little bit. Um,
Yep.
Even though I want to branch out past dabbling a little bit, I'm kind of like that's like a good 30% of the reason why I wouldn't is just because I have so much crap.
Feel that. So you mentioned um, the Lego convention in the summer, but is there anything else that you're looking forward to this year, be it Lego or just your artwork?
Yeah, next month I'm teaching my second uh, class for Big Brothers Big Sisters, um, which is going to be for kind of it's going to be for underprivileged children here at Hendrick Home for Children, where the big brother and big sister parent get to come. And they're issued a Lego kit, and I get to teach them. I'm doing two different builds with them. I'm doing as a warm up. They're going to build the very hungry caterpillar, and then they're going to get to build whatever kind of foods they want to feed the hungry caterpillar. And then we're going to move on to a little bit more complicated build. We're going to build rainbow fish, um, and talk a little bit about rainbow fish design and more advanced techniques. And then they're going to get to design their own storybook character. So Abilene is actually the storybook capital of America, and it is Anytown, USA. It is the perfect storybook town, and I want to showcase that. Like, so I'm getting that event, and then with our Center for Contemporary Arts, we run art camps for kids, and there's a sculpture camp going on for a week. They've got an artist who's actually a friend of mine that I went to college with. He's going to come in for a week, um, and then their reward on the last day is because they're doing a different sculpture process every day. And the last day, I'm coming in as like I guess I want to call it like celebrity guest appearance. That I'm coming in to do a Lego sculpture. They get to do freeform Lego sculpture. So I'm actually gonna kind of design that based around like maybe like 4 or 5 pieces and like specific pieces I think are cool. Have them order bulk of those pieces, and then the kids are gonna build a sculpture with those pieces the same way that they've been building sculptures with everything else. So that's gonna be really cool. And then I've got Brick Rodeo coming up. Um, just so many plans and ideas that I'd like to, you know, keep it going. It's hard to keep track of every idea that I have. Sometimes, which is why I have a sketchbook and a planner that kind of stay on me. Um, which, if you're a disorganized person, get a planner. By the way, I feel like in our 20s, I should not be saying that. That was a lesson I had to learn in middle and high school that has helped me so much in my adult life. Yeah, no, this has been cool. I'm a big fan of yours, so it's cool to get to chat. Like I said, like I feel like our work kind of has an interesting intersection, and so that's awesome.
Yeah, and I hope this will be interesting to the people watching this, especially because like this isn't about photography necessarily, but like you said, I think other mediums and other disciplines, they all intersect in a way, and at the end of the day, it's all a form of expression, and they're all valid.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for coming.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right.